to Thursday Nighter, round four for the month of April. I am Michael Perry, and I am once again joined by National Master OK, and we're looking forward to some more fun games tonight from the club. For our player profile for tonight, we have Jason Wagner. He's a frequent player at the club, frequent Nighter player, as long as a frequent player who plays at the Monday quads. He achieved an expert rating with a peak of 2019. He also he is known to be very well prepared in the Catalan, in the Classical Sicilian, and several other openings, and he doesn't shy away from theoretical main lines. So many players do, but not him. Jason won his section of the 2008 Wisconsin State Closed Championship with a crushing 5.5 out of 6. Jason has strong results against high-rated players with several wins and many draws versus masters and strong experts. His best wins include players Benjamin Wheaton, Ed Zelkind, Dane Zagar, Kyler Weatherspoon, Nate Hoover, and Andrew Sheehan. His best draws include players Thomas Britt, Ashton Jin, Ethan Hunt, and Tim McEntee. So very entertaining and very strong player we're covering tonight in Jason Wagner. And I believe we have his game queued up.
Yeah. And let's see. Let's get started. So he's playing the black pieces against Jonah Butler, who I'm told may not be at the club for a while, maybe for a longer while. This is going to be moving for educational reasons. And we get a Tarrasch type position here with an interesting interpretation of Bishop G5. And okay, so that's a double-edged move. It looks like Jonah's trying to get some influence on the E5 square, but he does weaken his E4 square. So already we have an interesting strategic imbalance going on. And already I get the feeling that black is better here. If we step back to beginning, his development just seems smoother, and he's already putting pressure against white's pieces. It seems like white might be forced to waste even more time because of the attack on the bishop, or if he allows his bishop to be captured on the D3 square, then black has the bishop pair, which can be an advantage once the position opens up. Okay. So Jason goes for simplifications. And this is an interesting approach for sure.
It's down a pawn.
Yeah. I was trying to check my skills of arithmetic to see if I had missed something. But yeah, it's down a pawn. So let's see how this is working.
The pawns are a bit weak, though, so.
Yes. So because they're split, there might be some compensation for the pawn, but so that's an interesting decision. I probably would have captured with the rook just to keep it more active and make, if you capture with the rook, Yeah, the e3 pawn is still weak and isolated, but it's closer to potential defenders, including the white king. And meanwhile, you're also attacking the bishop, so forcing the bishop to make a decision. And if the bishop is so kind as to help you correct your pawns, now you're a pawn up and black has no compensation.
Yeah.
Then, on the other hand, capturing with the pawn does have one advantage, that white now has a passed pawn where black doesn't. So one can't say one is absolutely better than the other move, but let's see how this goes. And Jason decides not to be a friendly neighbor by exchanging off the bishop for the knight, correctly retreating and hoping to create some play. This is an interesting situation. Black is a pawn down, and the pawn's a passed pawn. The question comes, can white make his passed pawn count? And black is going to try his best to make it difficult. Already, I think black might have difficulty creating the barrier. Oofed. Yeah, this is now becoming a bit dangerous for black, especially after this move here. And now he's cutting black's king out of the defense. And if the white king can get to c5, then the pawn gets to d6. And once the pawn gets to d6, things start rolling. Yeah.
I wonder if there was merit before, instead of letting the rook get to e3 and cutting off the king. Yeah, go for it a couple moves. When he played bishop c4, instead of bishop c4, I don't know if he played king e7 first.
Yes, that's what I was thinking.
And then maybe he's okay, at least for now.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking, is that you need to make sure the king can get into the game. Now, that said, black might be a bit torn, because now that white's king is on d4, that releases his rook to do other things. So, for example, after king e7, which I think is a more correct move, maybe white plays rook here and forces the king to make a decision. What side of the board do you want to be on? And if he plays king here, now you come over here and start attacking the king side pawns with rook g7. So I think black is already in a very dangerous position here. But that said, playing bishop c4 made white's task even easier. So I think king e7 should be considered, at least, either way.
Yeah, it's probably a case where either is winning, but this one puts up less resistance.
Exactly. Yeah. So this is where we are right now, and it's going to be very difficult to hold this for Jason. That said, there's no reason why he should be resigning just yet. So let's step next door to see what's happening in Robert's game. Robert was a featured player last week, but wasn't able to play. And now we get to see what flavor of craziness he brings to the board this week. Okay. Center game. Now, another opening I'm no expert in. A friend of mine from Las Vegas area actually is a bit of a specialist in this center game. And I'm not sure knight c3 is the normal move or not. It makes sense. I mean, being a newbie, I'd probably look at c3 first, but knight c3 probably, maybe the idea is just get as much development as you can, as quickly as you can. Knight c3, bishop d2, castle queenside, or something like this.
Yeah, I'm completely unfamiliar with this opening.
Yeah, it was one of those openings where when you're starting up, they say, well, it's sort of weak because you expose your queen to tempo shots, etc., etc. And yet I've seen some really sweet miniatures created from this position, from this opening, not this position.
Are you a Scandi person?
Yeah. I mean, not full time, but yes, I spent a couple seasons playing Scandi, and typically played the queen capture on d5 and queen a5 line.
Yeah.
And that was before John B did his work to make the queen d8 line great again. So, which I said, oh, maybe I should pick that up. But then I got distracted because the French called again. So I went back to my first love.
Yes.
Okay. All right. I should have been paying attention to what's going on here. So queen f6 happens, attacking f2, but the pawn seems well defended. So then Robert plays knight d5.
Yeah, it looks like an early blunder from Norm because now everything's hanging. The queen's hanging, c7's hanging with a fork. If the queen moves and vacates the defense of the g7 square, the rook might fall.
Yeah.
So at first I'm like bishop takes f2, but then I realized he might not have anything better.
And actually, it's also another factor is if you play here to hold g7 and attack the rook, then this is happening. And unlike the England gambit, this isn't working because the knight can just capture.
And the queen protects, yeah.
Yeah, the queen protects. So this is nasty. So how did we get here? So this happens. And
come to think of it, though, I wonder if after queen g3 and after he plays queen f6, the more I look at it, maybe he does have a saving move here. So after knight d5, I wonder if he just can go back to d8, because then after queen takes g7, can he just play bishop d4? And at least he just loses a pawn in this line.
Ah, yeah.
Instead of sacrificing the bishop. So maybe, I mean, bishop. Yeah, after bishop d4, the queen should just have to come back and you should be okay.
So bishop d4 and then queen g3, I'm imagining.
Yeah. Now you're only down a pawn.
Yeah.
I'm a little hesitant to take that pawn on b2, but you might even be able to do that as well.
Yeah. It actually might be legal. So something like this, and then here and here. And then if here, then here maybe. And that still seems crazy, but then it wouldn't be. This is okay. Maybe black should play more carefully. Let's see.
And
maybe he shouldn't take. Yeah.
And I was even thinking after bishop takes b2, bishop takes b2 is probably just bad. Actually, you probably do have to consent yourself with just leaving the pawn. Because I'm thinking here, I was even looking at just c3. And if you sack your rook in the corner, then you
Oh,
just play queen b7, and okay, he wins your rook first, but now you're winning his rook, and where's that knight going?
yes. And the queen's coming to, the bishop's coming to h6, and yikes. That's
But
very
still,
nice.
as long as he doesn't take on b2, he's only down a pawn compared to the game where he
Yes.
sacked the bishop. So
This is still a very scary position to be in, even if you don't take the pawn on b2. Uh, so, yeah. So I guess maybe the culprit is this, in some ways, might be this bishop c5.
hmm, yeah,
I mean, it's gaining a tempo on the queen, but pushing the queen to a better square. G3 is a square that the queen usually wants to go to in this opening, as far as I can remember. And so you're spending a tempo to push the queen to where it wants to go and liberate the knight, because the knight wasn't free to do anything before. And then you bring your queen directly to where the knight can attack. And so just trying to understand the anatomy of the blunder here.
yeah. I think bishop c5 was definitely an inaccuracy.
Yes. And now we get to see Robert's technical abilities. Which it always feels strange to think about technique when it comes to Robert's games.
Notably, the pawn on a2 has been hanging for the last 20 moves, but it's never capturable because of b3 and rook a1, and you scoop up the bishop.
Yep. Let's show that on the board here. So, since this move, I guess this is the first time he could have taken it. And so the idea is b3, and then there, and the bishop can't get home. Let's see if a5 is enough, though, to rescue. It probably isn't, because you can do this right away.
Mm-hmm.
And it's too late. The cavalry doesn't get there in time.
Yeah.
So now, how would you go about winning this, Michael?
Hmm.
Would you have a specific plan in mind, or just?
It is a little bit tricky in the sense that you can't easily trade off pieces, which you would like to do considering you have a piece for a pawn, and there's no clear pawn breaks. So yeah, it's a bit difficult here, but obviously you know you're completely winning. So I'm guessing in a position like this, you just need to take a more patient approach, probably slowly improve your pieces. So I might double on the e file. It's probably the file that makes the most sense to double on, because I mean you're more than happy if he ever opens up the d file or the c file. Sorry, d or f file. If he ever opens that up, it's probably only good for you because you get to trade off more pieces. So maybe like rook e3, rook he1, slow improving moves. Yeah, because I don't see an immediate way to win more material or anything of that sort.
Yeah, it does seem as if black. So, which is actually a bit funny too. Right at the moment, black's position doesn't have any obvious weaknesses, besides the fact that it's just a piece down. But otherwise, his position is weakness free, and so white doesn't have any ready targets, right?
And this is a long way off, but something to consider. And it might seem a bit absurd to consider this, considering there's so many pieces still on the board. But it's chess, and in chess, you need to be absurd. Um, if you trade off all the pieces, you would if you traded off everything down, trade off all the pawns, trade the rooks off. Well, not the rooks, but if you trade everything off, you get into a scenario where um you don't have the adequate material to win. So you do need to be slightly careful. Like you could get like a rook versus bishop scenario. Um, so you need to be careful about such things. I mean, even when you have a piece in chess is such a complex game that you still need to be slightly careful and um can't just think, oh, I'm going to win and it'll be a smooth ride.
And even if you were to follow a quote rule, you need to put that rule in context. Exchanging off the pieces exchanging off some pieces does improve your chances. But if you don't have any pieces to push him around, then what's the point?
Yeah, some but not all.
Exactly.
I do like what Robert's done though, pushing his A and H pawns up. He recognized he had the time to do so. And both
Yes.
those pawns are on dark square, so they can't be targeted by Norman's light squared bishop. So making slight improvements.
Yeah. And in addition, I think he's finally come on the plan of using his pawns on the queen side as a battering ram against Black's position. Because up till now, Black has been comfortable just moving his pieces around, but now after c4, telegraphing likely b2 to b4, Black isn't going to be able to just sit still. He has to do something, or just get crushed.
Yeah, this does look like a nice play. Just pushing on the queen side looks quite appealing now. Let's see if he'll do it.
Yeah. So he played bishop f1, and I'm trying to understand why. Maybe he wants to play g3 and bishop g2, and figures there's no hurry since Black can't do anything to him, and he'll just prepare his advance. Maybe he also wants to move. So after playing b4, he might want to follow with bishop d4 and then be able to switch this guy over here and bring the other guy over there. And in order to do that, he needs to bring the bishop back. And then by playing g3 and bishop g2, now the bishop is doing the job of defending the e4 pawn, while the other pieces make Norman's king start to quiver.
You might have f5 in a position like that, but
okay. Now I'm not sure what is going on. Oh, is the idea to play if d takes? Is the idea to play here now?
must be, yeah. This seems a bit unnecessary, though. I mean, why sack a pawn when you can invade?
Yeah, I'm not sure. It wouldn't be my choice, but no one ever accused me of having the same conception of chess as Robert, so he must have some idea behind it. And I think maybe this is just more dynamic for him, and so he just that way he's not having to babysit an e-pawn. And as far as he's concerned, probably having the bishop versus two weak pawns is just as good as the bishop versus one pawn.
Another thing of note is Robert has 80 minutes, while Norm has 3.
Oh, yeah, that is okay. That's probably an even more important consideration, is give him problems to solve, which even if they're not objectively insoluble, definitely will cost time on the clock. All right. Let's step back. It seems as if Jonah was able to get the job done. Let's see how he finished.
Hmm.
So we left the game around here, exactly here. And so rook c8. Ah, yeah, this is brutal. d7 is coming next. And it's just so funny. Well, funny strange rather than funny haha. Um, you know, we often think of the bishop being more able to corral the knight in a lot of positions. This is a situation where the knight is keeping the bishop from doing anything useful. The bishop would love to come to the rescue through e6 and then keep d7 from happening, right? So something like here and here, but he can't because the knight is helping to keep that square off limits. And unfortunately, b5 prevents the bishop from getting back in the other direction. Now, so there's nothing really to prevent d7 and d8. Oh,
Yeah.
that was a good exploitation of his advantage by Jonah.
Would we be able to maybe scroll back to the beginning? I was a bit curious how he lost that pawn.
Oh yeah, that was rather
See if
a
it could have
rather
been
strange
avoided, maybe.
sequence. 95 just seems off here.
Yes, 95. Maybe
Yeah,
maybe just rook c8 and slow play it.
yeah, rook c8 I think is just a normal move, and it's not. It's not clear how. Let's see, maybe.
I do prefer white because his queen oftentimes in you know y- his queen gets into a little bit of a awkward situation with having no good squares, but um
Yes,
definitely I definitely prefer it to giving up a pawn. So maybe
yes. No, this is definitely better than, yeah,
yeah.
yeah. The rook c8 is definitely better than giving up the pawn there, and it's not clear that the pawn on b7 can be taken either. So maybe black can force white to make up his mind by playing h6. Only because after, well, yeah. So say h6, and so if he goes here, well, I don't know. Maybe this isn't as good, allowing this to happen, because it's not going to be easy to play g5.
But something I like here now is just knight g4 because this um opens up
Yeah.
potentially a way to get your queen to a better square, making use
Mhm.
of the fact that you're winning a tempo on the e3 pawn.
Yes, definitely. So there is some benefit to playing h6, because if it was on g5 when we played here, there wouldn't be as much tactical pressure on white. So if we tried to do knight g4 here, well, actually, maybe this is even better, because it's threatening a pawn on g5, and now the bishop can't slide back to f2 to
Hmm.
help defend the e3 pawn. So this might actually have more going for it than playing h6 first. And in fact, let's step back a bit. After rook here, can we even consider this right away? It just so happens that maybe we play that and they capture, we capture back, we're no longer having to deal with the vis-a-vis on the D file. Our rooks are connected, and he still has to figure out what he's doing with the E3 pawn and the E3 square. Now, say he plays Queen E2.
Now E5 looks really good.
Yeah, this is, oh man. This is looking, well, maybe, let's see if that's the best move. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, because you're threatening
Yeah.
mate and the knight, so yeah.
Yep, and if he plays here, we can actually play here, I think. Because if he goes here, then we get the exchange. As one possibility. Maybe there's even better here. Let's see. Okay. Yeah, I think that should be sufficient to cause some pain to white. So maybe even in that position, it's funny how the evolution of chess plans occur. We see an idea in another position, and then we fine tune it and fine tune it. And if we can only do this during the game in real time, our games would be so much cleaner and better, right?
Yes.
Of course, we have the benefit that we don't have the clock ticking for us. So, but yeah, I think maybe knight chief, maybe, well, almost anything would be better than just dropping the pawn. And I think once the pawn was dropped, Jonah did a marvelous job in consolidating. And it turns out that as the game went, his decision to play e takes d4 was way superior to mine of capturing the rook. This is it just seemed like it was automatic after that. Now, okay, maybe Jason could have played some better moves, but yeah, it just seemed like once he got his pieces set up correctly to help in pushing the pawn forward, and he got his king in. And maybe this is another point we can another moment we can point out. So, after speaking out against following rules blindly, one question that comes up here is, should Black be putting the pawns on light squares? And there are two issues to consider. One is placing the pawns on light squares means the bishop has fewer squares it can go to. But even more importantly, removing the b pawn from b6 allows white to get to c5. So the blockade right now is on d6, and the two pieces that can remove that blockade at the moment are the knight and the king will be the more dangerous piece to get in there.
Right? Yeah, that's a good point. I do just like bringing the bishop back more. You don't need all of your soldiers to come back to stop that pawn. When you play a4, you're definitely limiting the mobility. So that's a good point.
Yeah, in fact, maybe an ideal setup might be something like here, maybe bring this guy back, and then use the bishop as the blockader instead of the rook. And then your rook can do stuff in the meantime while the bishop is standing, trying to hold back the pawn. I think it just gives Black, it seems like it gives Black more potential. But yeah, after the pawns go to light squares, now the king has a highway into the queen side. Yeah, well, it's a nice game by Jonah. Let's see. So let's go to, oh, well, Robert got the job done. So let's see what happened. So we left it here, and Norman played rook d7. So e5 was the plan as we suspected. And Black's in a bit of a pickle because if he plays f5, similar situation, the king can now infiltrate. And on top of that, white now has a pass pawn on the e-file. So he plays here. And I guess Norman had seen enough because his bishop is now on pre. And if he escapes with the bishop, well, there's no way to escape with the bishop that won't involve losing more material.
Yeah, maybe that's just a time pressure mistake because f5, you got to play it. You got to play f5.
Yeah.
It's your only move to prolong the game. Like I'm still, obviously you're still completely losing, but I'm not seeing. It's still going to take White another 15 moves to crack Black.
Exactly. Yeah, f5 just has to be played. There's no. It's. I mean, again, f5 does a lot of king in, but anything else besides f5 means you don't have a tenable position within 2 moves or something. So yeah, so that was a good one by Robert. Let's see. Let's take a look at some heavyweight games. Well, they're all heavyweight, but we will start with Connor versus Nathan because I believe they're both vying for first in this round.
I believe so, yes.
So let's take a look and see what's going on here. So Connor's threatening Nathan with a taste of his own medicine. Connor's playing as if he's prepared to defend a Tarrasch defense if Nathan transposes into a d4 opening with d4 and c4.
That looks like a reverse Grunfeld.
Well, the Catalan itself, which is what White is setting up for, waiting for c4 to be played, basically is a reverse Grunfeld. Yeah. So.
Yeah. Transposition.
So your observation is correct. So, and now we just transpose into a fairly theoretical line of the Catalan. I don't usually enter this particular line. And if I recall, not the way it's played here, but in some versions of this position, White might find himself giving up a pawn temporarily. But in this case, the tactics work where he doesn't have to give up material. Now, Black could play knight d7. It's possible. But he plays back, which actually is a decent response because now White has certain tactical difficulties caused by the pressure on the bishop on c1. And so at this moment, Black has a bit of a initiative going here. He's the one pushing White around. e6 happens, and a3 is played. I mean, he could have castled immediately, but it's also difficult to find a good square for the queen unless d1 is what it wants with its life after, say, 0-0 and bishop b4.
Maybe I'm I might be reading into things too quickly, but if we go back a couple moves, just to satisfy my curiosity, I wonder if, let me see what move it is. Pull up the game.
So should we go back? Let's go back all the way.
Yeah, I'm thinking after A3 on move 13.
Oh, okay. So that's
I'm wondering, I'm looking at knight b4. Maybe, yeah, knight b4 looks appealing actually. What do you do after knight b4?
so. This is a check.
Mm-hmm. Take it.
Okay. And then king b1 maybe,
Now
or
we,
is maybe 0-0 is even possible.
this is probably the best option. Um,
Yeah.
so I guess it's just a throwaway move, but it's interesting.
Oh, it's worth looking at because you never know when the stars align and these tactics can work. It just so happens that at this moment, white has castles. But yeah, that's definitely something to look at. And I don't know. I think um, black already feels like he has a more comfortable position, and I think it's important. This is also another interesting moment that bishop f6 seems more accurate than castling. So you may want to castle, but you don't have to castle just yet. You do have to consider what happens if white plays e4 here, and how you're going to respond to that. But I think using your advantage in the development against white's queen side, against white's queen side, is worth delaying castling. So now the knight has no easy way to get in. The queen is in the way of the bishop. The bishop needs babysitting by the queen or the rook on f1. So bishop f6 just seems like a fine decision. e4 happens, which is probably the only way white's going to uncoil. And so here he castles, and I was going to wonder if there was an argument for even playing knight c4 here instead, just putting a bit more pressure on the queen side and keeping e5 from being a thing for a move, and maybe hopefully freezing the bishop on c1 for a move.
Yeah, I like knight c4 a lot for the reason you mentioned, and also because in the position we got, e5 looked appealing to me for white, and now Nate can't do that. So,
Oh, sorry, I
because
went a bit too far.
oh no worries. But now he can't play e5 because both the knight and the bishop control that square. So yeah,
Exactly.
knight c4 looks really good.
And again, this is one of the dangers of doing certain things by routine, where Connor decided, I guess, just castle, get that out of the way. But now e5 comes, and white has a bit more breathing room here.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So white has found a way to gradually peel themselves out of the box. Now, I don't know if it would have made sense to play rook ac1 first. But maybe that's not so important because with h4, you're keeping g5 from being a thing anyway. So you don't have to worry about being forced to play bishop c1, locking that rook in. Now, there is a threat to b2 after that queen move. Which Nathan addresses tactically, or so it seemed. As it can still play knight takes d2, knight takes b2. So, yeah, this is Connor showing tactical sharpness. Nice. Now, I'm kind of oh, that's true. Black can always bail out with bishop takes g5. So knight, I initially seen queen. Well, I guess it's the move that happens next. Queen h5, but then bishop takes g5, bishop takes g5, rook takes d5, and unless Connor is interested in helping Nate out, I don't see any compensation for the lost pawn.
I'm a bit confused why he wouldn't try knight f6. If we go back a couple moves, instead of knight g5, could he have tried knight f6 maybe?
Okay, so let's see here, and then knight f6.
I'm sure he's still worse, but just as a means to weaken the structure.
I think you're right.
Because, I mean, so obviously takes f6. You might as well to do it at some point. Queen takes b2, and then, I mean, whether they take or whether they don't, you weaken their king side. So you're still down on a pawn, but you've definitely made Black's position weaker. So I prefer this.
I'm actually thinking in this position maybe. I mean, if you're Black, or if our Black here, trying to decide on f5 versus fe5 versus doing nothing, and I think I might be tempted to go with my natural impulse is to play f5 here.
Yes.
And keep White's pawns at bay, and not let the bishop get suddenly improved because there's one fewer pawn in its way. So, yeah, but knight f6 I think would have been a better approach than knight g5. Knight g5 leaves, and it gets worse. So,
yeah, I just checked the engine. The engine does suggest knight f6 is the top move. So you're still worse, obviously, but it is the top move according to stock.
You're less worse, right?
You're less worse, yes.
So, yeah, now Connor is just going to town. So he's got a second pawn for his troubles. And coincidentally, the bishop on g5 is pinned against the queen all of a sudden. So he has to take a move to deal with the threat of either f6 or h6. So that's another lost tempo. Oh, mean. Wow. So, yeah, unless Connor gets really careless, I think this one is kind of in the bag. But his king is a bit lonely, and h5, yes, it was useful as a tactical device, but it is still a target. And so Black will have to keep that in mind as he proceeds. All right, let's see what's happening with Ethan Hunt versus Eddie Wasserman. Ah, the coffee house.
Is that what they call this?
Yes. Yeah.
Where did that name come from?
Uh, I'm not exactly sure. My theory would be that it was kind of a play on a theme. So if you and say this happened, a lot of less experienced players of the white pieces faced with the Sicilian back in the day may have responded with an early bishop c4, which was not considered that sophisticated. The sort of thing that a coffee house player would play, which in those days was not necessarily used as a compliment. Yeah. So with that in mind, when we're dealing with a reversed Sicilian, bishop c5 is equivalent of bishop c4 with the position with the colors reversed. So I think that's probably how it got the nickname of the coffee house variation. Is my guess. I don't know. I guess we could probably put that on Ed Winter to give us more clues. He's a famous chess historian. So
Interesting, yeah, because I've never heard of that.
oh, okay.
And I get it makes sense in the sense that it seems bishop c5 is only helping white eventually play d4. So
it's actually an interesting system. I've played it myself. I never really felt that comfortable with it, but I believe I've seen Mickey Adams of England on the black side of this position. And if it's good enough for him, it's good enough for me. He is.
yes.
Yeah. So
2650 GM, I think.
yes. In fact, this position appears like one that's appeared in my games quite a few times. Queen b3 is new to me. So one question that's of interest is here. Sorry, here, and then you have to make a decision as to how you want to safeguard your bishop. And the question is it a6 or is it a5? a5 has a disadvantage of leaving the b5 square a bit weaker, but a6 does mean that if and when b4 happens, then b5 might be a thing. So there are certain difficulties that black has to be prepared for. And yes, the maneuver with e3, d4 can be rather annoying. Black plays h6 because d3 was not just meant to strengthen c4 and act as a preventive against e4. It just so happens to open the bishop up to bishop g5. And so black plays h6 to prevent that. Yeah, so this is a newer move for me. But then again, I suppose any move at this point would probably feel new to me. So what's going on in this position?
I have no idea. Sometimes I look at structures and I have no idea what's going on because, yeah, I've never played the coffee house. Don't know what the coffee house is.
Well, I guess just looking at the position without knowing what the names are, it's not. I'm not an expert on either side of this position. I don't think. So I'd have to feel my way the way you'd be feeling your way if you were suddenly presented with this position as black, for example, what are you trying to do? And I think it's fair to say I don't know. I don't know either. But bishop g4 sounds like a decent start. Get something developed. Maybe put some more influence indirectly on d4.
I like
Interesting
queen d7. I was thinking if before you even played that, I'm like if Ethan gives me the chance to trade off those light squared bishops, that's something I definitely want to do. So I was even thinking rook fe1. I'm sure bishop e3 is fine too, but rook fe1 would kind of give you the opportunity to tuck that bishop on h1, so you wouldn't have to trade them off.
Yes, I agree. Eddie's tactically agile here. So after this part, so one of the things that can happen in his English positions is white will play this knight d5, hoping that after knight takes and pawn takes, he now has this guy on a half-open file and hopefully put pressure on it. This move wants to say, no, not that simple. I'm going to get my knight onto d4 next. This is just a tactical operation here. I'm going to get my knight to d4, and whatever happens, you're going to end up with doubled f pawns and double d pawns. So this is, I think, a pretty nice maneuver by Eddie. Made even better after queen c4. So now, after that, black just seems to be a bit better.
I'm a bit confused, though, why he played b5. I definitely like Eddie's position. Getting those doubled F and double D is great for him, but it seems like the only compensation white has, considering that his structure is much worse, is that C pawn you were talking about, the backward C pawn. And after you play b5, you only weaken that pawn further. It seems like you might want to eventually be able to play c6 at some point if you're able. So I don't understand b5. The queen on c4 is not really doing anything, so b5 is a bit of a curious move in my opinion.
Yes, I agree. It does seem a bit suspect, because for the reasons you mentioned, it just seems as if it's not addressing the one positional liability in black's position, and maybe makes it worse. But then I think Eddie was probably banking on the dynamics of the position and saying, well, he's not going to have time to put pressure on that pawn if I can keep hammering him with blows. And we'll see whether his judgment was correct. Let's see. Okay, so maybe his judgment was not correct, because if you're going to have to, if you're playing rook c8, well, I suppose you could say that he convinced white to give up the A file, but is this going to be the site of a repetition? Uh-oh. All right, well,
you know my takeaway from this game, okay? Chess is hard. That's my takeaway from this game. That's all I would say, because I mean, what's that quote? You need, what is it, 2 weaknesses? Or I thought it was 2 weaknesses to win the game, and it looks like you have 2, but I quickly checked the engine, and it's still, even after the whole knight d5, knight d4, knight takes f3 business, and giving white such awful structure, it's still like pretty much dead even. So it's chess is and my and my point about b5 was actually the best move. So
b5 was actually the best move, right?
Yeah. So it makes me wonder.
Yes. No, these positions are not trivial to work around and to assess, which is one of the for people who play the English and enjoy the English on either side is what gives us its richness, because you can get any kind of point total you want, and visually it looks as if black should be doing great. The thing is a bit of an optical illusion. So here, yes, white has double D pawns and double F pawns, but they're not really weaknesses if you can't get to them.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's the crux of the situation, is that it's not possible. It's not easy. I shouldn't say it's not possible. It's not easy to get to them. I wonder here. Well, he didn't have time for it, did he? To get like C6 or C5 in. But then, yeah, if you're going to do either one, it might be C5. But even then, it seems like a draw might be a fair result here. Well, actually, I guess it is a fair result according to your quick check with the Silicon friend. So, all right, let's move on to Daniel Stenke versus Tom Babcock. Okay. So somehow they transposed into a French type position, like a French Perrache, with 3 knight f6, where black gets these two sort of hanging pawns in the center, but it has a half open f file. Now there was an argument in favor of trying to escape with that knight. Don't know if it's a good argument, but it seemed like maybe 95, maybe 97, but okay. So let's play. This is all still good. Black seems to be getting a little something going here. Nice. That's a nice touch.
Mm-hmm.
Leaving white with doubled G pawns. Probably not enough, but still, anything you can do to make white's life less comfortable. Okay, so they reached a calm ending.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see. Torfy versus
That seems to
Roman.
be another good result for Daniel. He's definitely a rising player. I was checking his profile the other day, and he's only played like, I believe maybe like around 50 games or so. He's only played maybe about a dozen or so tournaments, and his rating is
Oh,
already,
wow.
I believe in the 1800s. Because when I looked at his profile, there's only one page. You don't need to go from like 1 to 50, from 50 games to 150 tournaments, I should say. So he's risen to 1800 quite quickly. So that's and drawing Thomas Babbuck's a fine
Yeah,
result for him.
yeah. He seems like a really tough guy to beat. He might have lost a game or two since I've started um, commenting on the games here. He just seems very solid,
Hmm.
and that's a definite plus. Okay, so Torfi is playing a bird, and Ronan is responding with the Fianchetto approach. It's always difficult to determine what the best way is to recapture in these sort of positions. Sometimes it's clear enough. This is not one of those times, I think. Um,
Yeah, I'm not a huge fan of White's position either way, so I don't know.
yeah, I'm thinking if I were playing the white pieces here, do I play d takes e5 and potentially have pawns running down into black's king side, but then having to worry about c5 and d4 in response. So say here and then here type stuff. Or do I play f takes e5, but then have to concern myself with how I'm going to respond to, say, rook f8, for example. But then I have a protected passed pawn, and black's counterplay is limited.
I do come to think of it as we look at it more. I do think he made the right decision because it just looks like if you take this way, that pawn on e3 just looks so weak. If you take with the f pawn, it looks
Mhm.
like bishop g5 and or maybe you take on f1 first, but bishop g5 and you have to figure out you have to make some ugly move to always protect that pawn. So once you
True.
take this way, the bishop can still target it like bishop c5, but then you just play bishop d4. I think it's one of those
Mhm.
positions where white isn't any better, so he has to make sure he's not worse.
Yes.
So I do, as I look at it more, I do prefer d takes e5, which is the move Torfi played.
Yes, and I think, as I said, the advantages of d takes e5 seem more maximalist. I mean, in other words, if white can comfortably get g4, f5 in, you've got like an armada coming down there,
Hmm.
right? So, meanwhile, if you exchange f takes e, you have a protected passed pawn, but and I think this is a key point, is especially if you are looking to attack, and even sometimes if you're just looking to defend, keeping your pawns mobile is probably the most important factor. And with capturing with d takes e leaves both the f and e pawns mobile. While in the
Hmm.
other case, you just have a protected passed pawn, but it's not going anywhere as far as we can tell.
That's a very good point. Yeah, that's a high level point. Yeah.
So, so yeah, this is I'm going to posit that uh Torfi must have been enjoying himself at this moment. it's just a guess that he's gotten a number of the advantages he wants to get in this kind of position. Oh, there's no defending that thing.
Yeah. I was looking at, hey, why didn't he play f5? But hey, why didn't he just win a pawn? So good move.
Yeah. Now the question is d3 a move? And is it a move that, well, he could play d3, but then queen c4 happens and then the e-pawn is gone.
Wait, why did he never take the pawn on d4?
Wait, he didn't want to take it on d4 because of the f-pawn, I think.
Oh, the f
Although I'm
pawn.
not
You're right.
Yeah. I mean, it's possible he could have done it tactically, like capture and then capture, or capture and then get d and e5, d5, e5 in. So say something like this, and here, but maybe he just didn't want to have to give any hopes to the opponent,
Hmm.
and so plays g3 because the pawn. I don't think there's still a satisfactory way to deal with the d4 pawn. Well, we also need to keep in mind that when and if you do capture on d4, there could potentially be a bishop c5 somewhere with a pin against the king.
Yeah, this is good from Torfi.
Yeah, this just seems marvelous for Torfi. And now all he has to do is a modicum of care before harvesting. Although, okay, maybe what happens after... After pawn takes pawn, pawn takes pawn, and life is not as nice. So Ronan has found a way to at least not lose material immediately, which I suppose is a bit of a victory. Question is, how long can the queen... Oh, that's nice. So of course, if g4, then he can't capture, and so he's preparing to tell the black queen, Butov. And he plays it anyway, because he can. Because he is the great Torfi, and Rodin's going to suffer now. Ah,
Oh, when you get e5, f5, g5, that's usually a good thing. What is it? Gary said knight on f5 and game over or something. I think we should also add to that e5, f5, g5 game over.
I mean, talk about jailbreak. Those guys mean business. I wouldn't want to be on the wrong side on the wrong side of that business over there. So, eek. But wait, there's more.
Very nice.
Yeah, that was a very nice game by Torfi.
Mm-hmm.
If I could get positions like this all the time, I might join his tribe, the bird opening tribe. Um, that was how did that? So it seems as if his position really became vitalized after this. And in hindsight now, there's no question that D takes E5 was a correct recapture. It was
Yes.
like unreal how he was just able to create the tank, moving all his forces in, and maybe there was an argument at this moment. I'm not even sure that works. If he could even stop it, if it's maybe it's too late to try and keep the queen from getting to E6. Um, but yeah, once the queen got to E6, it seemed as if Black's position was once he got to E6, forcing the pawns forward and beyond their defenders. Then it just became having a good grasp of the tactics. And Rook H1 was a very good move, um, preparing for G4. And Queen G6. So the one question is, could he have resisted better by not playing by playing another move? But I don't see how he does it.
Yeah, I find this game very fascinating just because, yeah, like you said, after D takes E5, White, it seems like White kind of out of nowhere just has a nice, comfortable advantage, but it
Mm-hmm.
is one of those advantages where it didn't seem like Black did anything wrong. Like if I was Ronan and I lost this game, I would be a little bit like, okay, what just happened? Like how did I lose that? I do think, like you said, letting the queen come to E6, that I mean, I wanted to play like Queen C8 to stop that, but I was worried just about F5. I mean, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
it maybe maybe there was a hold for Ronan there. Maybe he needed to trade off queens, but a good game from Torfi.
Yeah, that was. I don't know if we still do game of the week, but this would be my candidate for game of the
Yeah.
week this week for sure. Let's take a look at John Baker versus Andrew McIntyre. And after that, we'll step back and see what's going on the top board. So let's go here. Another Sicilian, this time heading to Rosalimo. But okay, that's a bit of a different approach. I mean, it's not unknown. It's actually, this might have been, I don't think it was in this move order. There was a famous Stidler Kasparov game back in the 90s. But I think where at the time, Bishop B5 was not considered a serious winning attempt, and Stidler was able to get the job done.
Hmm.
Um, in fact, yeah, I think this maybe it wasn't this particular line because maybe Kasparov played 97 in that game. But anyway, whatever the case is, this is not unknown, and maybe Sammy plays this way. I know Sammy has kind of set up his repertoire where he's getting these Maroczy bind type positions often, which is what we see here with the E4, C4 set up in the center for white. And so we now have something similar to an accelerated dragon position. And at this moment, white could be losing a pawn, but black probably doesn't want to give up his bishop on c3 to get said pawn, because bad things could happen afterwards. Okay. So that's always a difficult question to answer. Do you put the knight there, or do you bring the knight to c5 instead? Either way, you might want to keep an eye on the e6 square. And you also want to think about how you're going to, if you need to keep the rooks connected, how you're going to do that. Andrew's fighting back on the queen side, and his opponent is trying to put pressure on e7, so rook f7 happens, which is all nice and good. And now it's not clear how white defends the c4 pawn, unless it chooses not to, and counterattacks on a5. So knight d7, which also reactivates the knight. Bishop g3, king f8. The king is activated, sort of, to help in defending the pawn. Oh,
Yeah, king f8's an odd move. Seems like you want to either that pawn's not worth defending at all, or you want to defend it with something else. I don't know.
Like a bishop, maybe.
Yeah, maybe a bishop.
Yeah, king f8 is a bit, because I was thinking, okay, well, king f8 makes some sense if you could get the bishop to h6, but that's not happening in this position. So, but then after bishop f8, it's also a question of where the rook's going to go. Is the rook going to be used to help with the kingside push, maybe? But in any way, I think the bishop might be better on f8 than the king. So, ruh-roh, where is that knight going?
Yeah, I'm worried about knight c6.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, now you have ideas like queen h6, maybe.
Yeah.
Bishop g7 can't be played. That's the pressure is pouring in.
Yes, the pressure is pouring in, and yeah, this does not look nice. So this is one of those another good example of I don't know if I should use the word economy or efficiency in defense. Using the bishop to defend on f8 would have released a lot of other pieces, or at least made e7 better defendable.
Mm-hmm.
Now you're having to use pieces with the combined weight of, well, if you give the king a fighting rank of 4, we're now looking at 23 points defending the e7 pawn. And then the bishop, who would be a more efficient defender, is hanging out on h8, where it's not contributing in any way to the battle at the moment, anyway. So, oh, and by the way, the pawn on a5 was hanging. So, yikes. Poor Andrew. So, no, this is going to be tough to hold. But he must fight.
Mm-hmm.
Whoa! How
He's
did
fighting.
that happen? Nice. Kaboom. Okay. So we're back at, we have a game again. Oh, now we don't only have a game. Black is pretty much winning now.
Yeah. Well,
So yeah,
I think
wow.
you can just take that pawn. Yeah,
Huh?
I think you
Yeah,
can just take that pawn.
yeah. I think you can take it. There's no. Well, maybe there's. Yeah, rook a6, rook b8, king. Uh, bishop takes, bishop takes. Wait a second. Let's see if there's any trick here, which I'm guessing is what Andrew's calculating. So rook here, rook check, king up, rook here, and there, and here, and well, gives him some fighting chances at least.
You're right. It does give Sam some fighting. So maybe refraining from taking that. Yeah.
Yeah, maybe play something like king g8 or king e8 because you want to get your rook into the game somehow.
Because if we count the material up, he's just up a piece right now. So
Yes.
he can afford to be patient because I'm not too worried about that a pawn. I'm a little worried, but I mean you have the rook behind it, so um, I just want to play like king g8 or king g7, bring my bishop back, and play like rook f8 and just win.
Yes. Yeah, I'm thinking maybe king g8, and then you can bring your bishop back, or king g8 because he's not threatening the bishop yet. Anyhow, if you play king g8, it allows you to play rook f8 because I want to get the rook into the game. I guess one concern for black is once the pawn gets to a7 and is defended by the bishop on e3, that might be something concerning to him, which might be why he's thinking, and maybe he's also calculating if he could get away with capturing on a6. But in the meantime, while Andrew's trying to sort out that puzzle, let's see what's happening on board one. So I think we left it here. Offering an exchange of rooks.
Yeah. Wait. What?
How did that happen?
Yeah.
What is going on here? So,
There's something in the air or in the water at the club.
yes, for sure. What in the Sam Hill? What's this? Golly.
Oh,
Just like that, the tables are turned.
yeah. Just like in the Andrew game, some massive turnarounds.
Yeah. Wow. You could right now push me over with a feather. This is unreal. Okay. So I guess the moral of this lesson, dear children, is never resign. You never know. Um, okay, so this is a position here.
And I would remind the viewers that this is the last round of uh, Thursday Nighter for April, and this is the first place battle. So I believe whoever wins this game will take first place and win the prize. If is there a prize? I think there is. Um,
Yes, I think there is. Actually, I think it's been said in a previous podcast that there's a prize, and the prize is actually funded by Nate. So Nate gets to get his money back.
yeah, this is true.
So, wow, this is a bit of a turnaround. So, how did this? Let's go back to that critical moment. So he plays. He's obviously in a hurry to exchange off pieces, and literally, this is like Wow.
I wonder if I don't want to read into things too much. It could have just been obviously it was a blunder, but maybe he was considering knight b6 and knight d6, and his hand played the wrong move. I think I mentioned this in a previous stream, but sometimes that happens. So maybe
Yeah.
he meant to play knight b6, which is a completely fine move, but instead he
Yes.
played knight d6 because both moves are natural. You want to trade off pieces, but one wins you the game and one loses you the game.
Yes. Yeah, that's possible because this is I was thinking that his plan was to play b5 and just move that pawn down. So in this position, just no need to move the knight away because the knight's corralling the bishop. Yeah, the h pawn might go, but then if the h pawn goes, the queen is not taking care of its duties, and yeah, you get a pass pawn going and just put more pressure on black. Was what I thought his plan was going to be. But yeah, this is just a straight up.
I actually just got informed by the chief that Connor is actually a full point heading into this game. So maybe that prize money of Nate's will actually be split if he wins.
Oh, so Connor was a full point ahead of Nate coming in.
Coming in, yeah, that's what I've been told. So
Okay.
I'm a little surprised considering that Nate has simuled. So
Yes.
I thought he was at least tied, but apparently, yeah, Nate Connor's actually up a point, so maybe they'll finish tied this month.
Okay. Okay. And so Nate needed this game more than Connor did
Yeah.
from a standing standpoint. Okay. All right. That doesn't make sense, but it is an explanation of sorts. Okay, this seems ambitious. E3. So the thing here is that it's still not, well, there's room to blunder. Let me not make any comments that might seem pretentious. There's plenty of ways to lose this position for both sides. At least Nate's trying to make it interesting. Connor's trying to make it interesting, I should say. And is Nathan playing a simul today as well?
I don't know.
His time is significantly lower, 3 minutes. But there's a 30-second increment per move. Yeah.
Yes, so he has some leeway, as much as you can have leeway when you play a simul, but
Yes. So Connor is going to try for the draw. Um,
I would definitely still be a bit scared here, like you pointed out. If I'm Nate, I would still be a little concerned about the repetitions because my king is very vulnerable, and I'm slightly entangled with that pin. So
yeah.
maybe Connor has just enough to save the game and take first place.
Yeah, actually, so what's interesting too, so maybe rook a3 has to be played, but then you have to make sure that he doesn't get a check attacking that rook, allowing him to take queen takes a3, and then he wins the piece back. But he's attacking the rook on a6 and attacking pawn on e3. And so something like this would protect both situations. But then the question is can he somehow conjure a check?
I
Let's
think
see.
I think this draws. I think this line draws because to stop the perpetuals, you need to bring your queen back, and then you take the bishop on d6. But I think,
Hmm.
but I think Rook a2 is actually a move that might work
Oh,
for Nate
okay,
because
two
if
is legal.
yes, because if Rook
If
d6, you actually
here,
have Queen a8 or or
oh,
that
yeah,
or
yeah.
that maybe.
Sorry, queen eight. So yeah, my
Queen
bad.
eight's a little simpler, yeah.
Yeah, queen
So
eight.
Rook a2 maybe, giving up your e3 pawn, but then saving yourselves from perpetual.
Yes, yeah. This seems to be the way to get the job done, and then maybe put your king. Let's see, where do we hide the king? Maybe we hide the king over here.
And now h5 is hanging with check, so it looks like Nate has a couple minutes left, but if he finds this, I think he's gonna win.
Yeah, rook a2. That is, and that just reveals one of my weaknesses is, well, how can we solve many problems with one rather than let's just solve the most important problems because there's more than two problems here. So I'm looking at the problem with the rook and the problem with the e3 pawn, but not the problem with preventing perpetual, which rook a2 handles the more important two problems. So there are actually three problems in the position, right? The perpetual, the e3 pawn, and the rook on a2. Sorry, in this position. And in figuring out your solutions, you prioritize what's really important. And rook a2 deals with the two most important problems here, while rook a3 deals with two problems, of which the e3 problem is not really a problem when compared to the perpetual issue, since you have a winning position, right? So rook a3, rook a2 is just should be lights out. Let's see if did Nate place. Oh, he found it. No, no. Let me see. Back
Let-
to live move.
Let's see. Yeah, he found it. Wow, good move. I'm not surprised. That's definitely within Nate's capabilities to find that. He's a strong player.
Yes. And now it's Connor's turn to figure out what he's doing with his life because you have the pawn on h5 hanging and given a move, maybe um yeah, this is still not trivial. So how does black deal with the threat on h5?
A line I'm looking at is the only like I guess maybe you have to play well, I mean if Queen H I was looking at Queen H6 or G6, yeah. But after G6, I think you can play Queen F7. Say, take my bishop and I'll checkmate you.
Yes. Yeah, and I think that's the kind of move I'd expect Nate to find um, almost lickety split. It seems, yeah, you're talking g6, you're talking f6, and you're threatening bishop e7. So it's not as if you're just playing for the trap, but bishop e7 is prepared with that move as well. And so,
Yeah, I think the only way Nate doesn't win this is if obviously he only has a minute left, is if he's simuling and he's running back and forth and
yes,
that's the only way. Oh, he doesn't find this. This could go on
he didn't
for
find it.
Because now you play queen takes g3, and now this one can go on for a little while, at least.
Yeah. Which Connor finds as quick as you like. So, okay, they just complicated things a little bit. Yeah, I guess we'll be here a little longer. Let's see what's going on the other board that's yet to finish. John versus Andrew. So we left it here. So he did take, and it went down this line. So it's somewhat difficult. Oh, if you can, so basically if you can find a way to attack the d5 pawn, then his life will be a bit easier. So if you can play, say, rook b3 maybe, which he did, and king f2, and the rook b5, king g3. Now, was that necessary? Not necessary, but it's not like there's anything white can do about it. So, okay, so I think Andrew's found the plan.
Yeah.
All right, let's run back and see if Nate has found a way to. Yeah, the position is not trivial at all. I think Connor might have found a way to. Well, he's definitely improved his chances of drawing. Not that I think it's drawn yet, but.
Wait a sec. Unless I'm blind, why not just g5 and argue? Hey,
Yeah,
how have you ever done to beat me? Try to beat me.
Yeah, I know. That's my point. Is well, I didn't make the point, but that's what I was thinking when I said that he's definitely improved his chances of drawing after g5. Unless he, well, what am I saying? I was going to say unless he finds a way to blunder mate, but these games have shown that both players are, I wouldn't say able and willing, but definitely able to. What happened here? Oh, that's clever.
It looks scary, but you can still probably always go g5. Just get rid of that one pawn.
True point. Yeah.
It's like I don't care how many pawns you win from me, as long as I get your one remaining pawn.
Yep. Exactly. And then try your best to keep make sure you don't have any skewers or pins. So, yeah, g5, king h8. This happened in the game. Not sure I like that. Oh, that's dirty. So did you see that?
I did. Let me check.
So it looks as if he was tempting. It looks like he was tempting white to play here, and then it responds with this, which is a very strange kind of fork. Unless I'm missing something here.
Right to wait. Oh.
Yeah, if he takes the pawn.
Yes. No, you're correct. Yeah. Yep. Now Connor's playing for the win.
Yeah.
Not like he could win that, but yeah.
Actually, just out of curiosity, is it possible to win that? So say here. Where's the rook going? Here, maybe. Unless he's going to save his bishop instead. We can look at both, right? We have a couple of minutes. So if rook here and here, then yeah, this should be drawn. Eventually. Although black definitely has the right and maybe the responsibility to make white suffer for the draw. Because it's not clear it isn't simple to find the best way to defend, I don't think. So if he instead decides to give up the rook, then yeah, white should be losing this one. It's best play. So wow. Anyway, nice by Connor finding that small trap.
I don't know. I'm still really curious. I don't know if we can get from any of the intel on the ground, I guess you could say, over at the castle, but I'm really curious to know if Nate was simuling because he can definitely find Queen F7. So maybe because I feel like after Queen F7 you can't do anything as Connor. So
No,
maybe
after Queen F7, it looks as if it was just done, right?
yeah.
Okay, let's go here. D6, sorry, and then Queen F7. And yeah, I can't find any defense.
He must have been so fixated on my queen can't move because of the hanging the bishop, but yeah.
And then didn't see the back rank mate he'd be able to create if he took. And even if he didn't see the back rank mate, after rook takes f8, rook takes d6, there's queen f8 at the least.
And the note about this move is not even that you're threatening to checkmate in the next couple moves, because we're not even like let's say we just got another move. We're not even threatening to play rook a7 because then black would have a perpetual again.
Yeah, but I think bishop e7 is the idea here. So if say he plays something, I don't know, something random, queen e4, or let's say queen, yeah, I don't know, queen f3, bishop e7, and
it is kind of mate, yeah.
Yeah. So queen f7 would have been, but I guess it's still instructive, right? I mean, as sloppy as it seems, each mistake gives us a chance to learn something. And so we're now learning, okay, we're in this position as black. Our best chance is the desperado with queen g3. And then now we turn on, okay, so how are we going to try and win as white? Well, we try and push the king back. And now we're ready to win the pawn. We agree to draw.
Yeah, I'm looking at the live camera. Those two players are on our camera tonight, and it looks like they are. Yeah, they just finished.
Okay.
Wow, that is a massive turnaround, and Connor takes home the April
Thursday night prize. Yeah. Congratulations to him. So he's back to his winning ways. He was on a streak some months ago, and then he was winning, I think, how many in a row, and that streak got broken, and which is, allowing folks like Miles and I think Dane might have won at some along the way too.
And I'm looking at excuse me, I'm looking at the camera, and it looks. I just saw him shaking his head. He's probably wondering how he saved that, considering the dire straits he was in. But yeah, Connor is a player to definitely note because he's somewhat close to master. He's checking his profile. He's 2151, so he is within that last 50 points of getting to master, and he this draw with Nate is a solid result, especially considering it wins him the tournament outright, and he was having a good Thursday nighter before, so he's gaining some more rating, and we'll see how long it takes for him to get master, but could be soon.
Yeah, he was this close to master a few tournament, like maybe March tournament or February, one of the two, and then he lost to Miles in the last moment. Yeah, if I remember properly, it was and maybe it might have been March or February, but it was if you look back at his history, I think he had gotten to like maybe 2180 something. So he's definitely, I mean, I think it seems inevitable that he'll he'll get there as long as he doesn't go on tilt somehow.
Or completely quit chess.
Yeah, completely quick chess. So this game is still a battle, right? So um, when we left, I had a feeling that after capturing that pawn, it should be fairly simple, but apparently nothing's really simple. So um, okay, so that succeeds in getting that away, but the king's position is rather unfortunate. He has to find a way to create some squares for the king. And something has occurred to me that if he so maybe he should just forget about the king and try and bring his rook into play like on the d file to keep the white king from helping out with the passed c pawn. But the reason I was laughing was because I said, well, what if black tries to create room for his king with that, and then this happens?
Yeah. You're actually boxing your king even more. Then you have to play like e6 just to try to save yourself.
I know, it's kind of sad, right? So the rook f8 looks like it's more in the right direction, and but maybe black might have difficulties forcing the win. If white plays king d5 now, so king d5, rook c5, sorry, rook c8, king c4, and then finds a way to win the c5 pawn. Maybe John's able to draw. So king d5 happened in the game. Let's see how Andrew responds.
Yeah, it's very very surprising. What I completely agree. We need to get our king out. So I'm looking at like rook c8, obviously to defend that pawn, and then at some point I just want to play e6. But
Yes.
if rook c8, king e6, c4, bishop c3, we are still kind of deadlocked.
Yeah. Yeah, that king's position is very unfortunate. So let's actually put those moves on the board. So here, and then you say here,
Yeah.
and here. And okay, maybe rook here, probably. I don't know. Maybe
Can we get them in Zugzwang? It's Zug. Wait, no, it's not. They can always go back and forth between the two. Between d5 and e6. Yeah.
Yes.
It's not quite. It almost is. If they didn't have the d5 square. Oh wait, but then why not just play? No, that doesn't work. Oh, maybe we have to play rook c5. Give up the pawn. We have to give up the pawn, surely.
So say rook c5 immediately.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, actually, this is yeah. I don't know. We're hallucinating. Actually, so in this position, don't even waste a move with that. Just come here immediately.
Oh, or this. Yeah.
Yeah.
We yeah, we were blind there for a little bit. We were thinking that
Wait a second, though. Hold on. Hold up. Wait a second. Kaboom! Could this be a checkmate?
and you're saying, oh, if g5, then f5 still. Huh.
Yep.
Oh no. No, not like this. Not like this.
Let's look at this. So here, there,
No.
e5, allowing rook g7, allowing rook here, and then maybe, and now actually after here,
Oh
or
man.
maybe it's either way. I think maybe after this, or I'm trying to figure out the best place to keep the king so we can play f6, f7 and get our and we're the ones getting the queen now as white.
This would be so sad if John pulled this upset. It would be cool, and I'm not taking sides here, but just from the standpoint of Andrew was the decent underdog going into this game, and it looked like he was just gonna beat John, but John is taking advantage of that weak king.
That is unreal. So I wonder if we'll see. So let's see. Is this the live game now? Okay.
It looks like the last move was King E6, yeah.
Okay. So King E6 is the last move. So yeah, this is actually, in fact, you know what? To prevent that other line with E5, maybe we don't even play Bishop C3. So if he plays C4, you don't waste a move with Bishop C3. So now the rook doesn't have C7.
You know, I think we just found a new candidate for game of the week.
Yes.
Maybe you know, game of the month. I like this is crazy stuff. You're up 4 points in material. All white has left is a bishop and two pawns, and you're getting checkmated. This is wild stuff.
Oh my word.
Yeah, I mean,
And this
he
is,
plays rook
yeah,
f8. He has to. Wow. Now it should be a draw though, right?
yes.
Wow.
And we're not even sure if it should be a draw because it kind of depends on where he places his rook now. Because if he places his rook on C8 behind the pawn, King f7 is winning. Dang, and Andrew has only 1 minute too.
Yeah, this the good thing for Andrew is I don't see him losing this. Unfortunately, he's not gonna win like it looked like he would just like 15 maybe 10 to 15 moves ago, but at very least, yeah. Now
Yeah,
the king can never get to f7 and you can never play king f7 bishop g7 because obviously you just check on the seventh rank and you save
yes.
yourself a mate, but and if you ever play f5 at very least you obviously trade first and then you sack your rook for that f pawn and in chess you can't win with just a bishop. um so
Could this be a winning attempt by Black though? So
yeah, I
if
mean it seems like John should never win this, but it's probably a draw. But if anyone should win, yeah, it probably should be black.
so if King comes here and Rook comes here, right? As long as the Rook stays on the seventh rank, Bishop G7 isn't happening. So say if the King goes, well, maybe the King has to come back. And now the question is,
Yeah, the more I look at this, this has to be a draw because
yeah.
I even King G8. I like King G8, so you're always threatening Bishop G7 mate. Um,
Mhm.
so if after Rook A7 we play King G8, um, and then obviously if Black ever plays G5, we obviously play F5, and
Mhm.
they need the rook to help support the pawn advance. But if they ever do that, we just checkmate them. So I think it'll be a draw. Yeah.
This is unreal. So, golly.
Man. Yeah, it was such a wild game that for a moment there, I think we both thought that John might even win.
Yes.
We were just so shocked by the fact that there was a checkmating possibility.
This is this is actually, yeah, this is definitely risen in the ranks of game of the week or game of the month. Just the
Yeah.
twists and turns.
And I feel like this
Let's
could
see.
be, obviously I can't get into the players' minds, but I feel like this could be a game where both of them are somewhat content in the fact that, okay, John's the, I don't know, probably 250 point favorite, if, roughly in USCF rating wise terms.
Mhm.
So a draw isn't so bad, but at the same time, John's like, well, I was completely losing, so I'll take a draw. So, at the end of the day, maybe both of them are somewhat pleased with a
Yes.
draw if that ends up being the result. But
Yeah, I mean, I've been seeing many interesting games over the last several weeks. For some reason, the idea this one excites me more than many of the others. Just the idea of nabbing that king, the possibility of nabbing the king in the corner over there, just seems sweet. But okay, it's yeah, this should be a draw. All things remaining equal. And so the question, I suppose, is as long as black, is there a way for black to win this? I don't think so. I can't find, as long as the bishop doesn't move away from, oh, no. Does that allow?
should still be a draw.
Yeah, it should still be a draw.
If Andrew wanted to make it, oh wait, no, wait, that would lose. Never mind. I thought he had some trick, but yeah, he probably just has to check, and make the draw.
It's possible for Andrew to make a mistake, actually. So if bishop, actually, let's see what happens after bishop. If bishop, okay, this is another kind of fantasy variation. So bishop, oh, okay, he plays there. I wanted to take a look at bishop here
Yeah,
and see if he has time. No, too late.
now if that happened, that would set the castle ablaze.
Yes. So, all right. Yeah, I think we can rest assured this will be a draw. The king's position is so unfortunate. Well, it's unfortunate for black. Of course, white is thanking his stars that the king is positioned on h6 because that's what creates the drawing chances here. Let's while he's looking at that position. Well, maybe we shouldn't go away because it's down to 50 something seconds. Did he lose on time?
I'm looking at the same thing. I see zeros across his clock, but I highly doubt that he did. But
Because he just went from like 50 seconds to 0.
yeah,
Oh,
now
okay. He has 47 seconds again.
oh, and there's the draw.
They agreed it wrong. Okay.
Wow.
Wow. So actually, let's step back a second, or maybe more than a second, and see how black might have played this differently. So it comes here and then goes there to prepare g4. And so maybe the correct approach, instead of h6, which goes back into the trap, is rook c5 immediately. And now if G4, now king H4. Yes, that allows bishop here, but then after king takes, he still has black still is attacking the rook on c8. Everything's covered. So the rook on c8 is attacked, the pawn on g4 is attacked, and this is probably a way to avoid the almost self-mate that happened there.
Yeah. Or
But
maybe
I mean,
G5 too. Just playing G5 at some point might work.
oh yeah, so let's see here. Wait a second, what happened here? Here. Okay, yeah, so instead of taking on d5. But yeah, even here, maybe playing g5 immediately.
Because yeah, you don't need to rush to take that pawn.
Exactly.
But I guess you do allow G4 F G4 and if but no you don't no I guess it's a little tricky because if you take he does get F5 in. And if
Yeah,
you don't take, he might get Rook G8. So it's a little tricky.
true.
Hmm.
Yeah, I think maybe just the simple rook c5 and force the
Yeah.
sequence.
Yeah, I like that. Yeah. No, you're right.
And there. And now, yeah, this should put an end. As I say in the comics, put an end to your meddling. My
Yes.
affairs. So, but wow, that was an exciting game at the end there. All right. So let's see. Let me move things around here and so Nate Hoover 2 scores 4 out of 5. How does that work? Did he have 3 games against Dennis McGrath?
Yeah, something's not quite right here.
Yes. But
Um,
okay, so Connor finishes 3.5 out of 4. Nate Hoover 1 finishes with 2.5 out of 4. Eddie Wasserman finishes with 2.5 out of 4. Dane Zagar finishes with 2 out of 3. Thomas Babcock finishes 2 out of 4. Ethan finishes with 2 out of 3. Thomas Hayden 2 out of 3. Mitch Ross is playing in the lower section, correct? Okay.
I believe so.
Okay. All right. Well, no, congratulations to Connor. For some reason, I don't know why. Last week I had the impression that Nate might be leading, but it was actually Connor who was leading.
Yeah. I don't know why these standings are a bit funky, but yes. We got word from the boss that Nate
Okay.
Connor was leading by a point, so we trust that.
Okay. Yes.
So yeah, I mean, congrats to Connor. Like I said, let's see who he beat. So he beat Robert. I mean, all
Well,
of
he
these
starts
wins
off.
are against good players. Excuse me.
Yes.
Yeah, so he beat Robert, he beat Miles, he beat Eddie. I mean, and drew Nate. So that's every one of those players right there is at least 1900. Most of them 2000. So that's yeah. I mean, I would expect Connor to maybe be 21. I don't like guessing ratings, but he'll be one step closer to master.
Yes. That would be my guess as well. And well, Nathan gave it a good shot. At some point, Nathan had his chances, and yeah, both players had chances to win at different points in the game, and so I guess it's a full bodied battle, so to speak. But
Yes,
all right,
solid tournament from Nate as well.
yes, quite right. All right. So, do we have any other club business before we adjourn for the night?
Yeah, I think the only other thing is this stream is sponsored by Chess Goals. They are simple chess courses for non-grandmasters. You can learn complete repertoires in under 100 lines. And this is headed up by local national master Matt Jensen. He creates these courses, and you can actually use the coupon code CASTLE to save 30% on any of the purchases at chessgoals.com. So make sure to check that out. And yeah, thanks for tuning in, everyone. And we'll see you all next month. Bye bye.